Bienvenidos, soy Ana de Aprende con Flowers. Remember, my videos do build off of the previous ones, so if you haven't seen my video on accents, then you're missing out. Hoy vamos a aprender sobre los números cardinales, cardinal numbers. What are cardinal numbers, you might ask? Well, cardinal numbers are used in a variety of things, such as telling the quantity of something, also giving the date, the time, including your age. It's also what's used when giving your phone number and giving your address as well. Cardinal numbers are especially used when talking about stuff regarding money. Numbers that you most frequently use will probably be between 0 and 10. So let's review. We have cero, cero, uno, uno, dos, dos, tres, tres, cuatro, cuatro, cinco, cinco, seis, seis, siete, siete, ocho, ocho, nueve, nueve, diez, diez. So, you're not just going to use numbers between 0 and 10, of course, right? So, we're going to move on to some bigger numbers. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. One thing I want to point out to you is that numbers between 16 and 19 have this, it's more of a compound word if you want to think of it that way, because dieci is like diez y, so diez and then y, sort of, right? And then the number you want to fit in there. So you wouldn't say diez y cinco, right? You end up with quince. That's just how it goes. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, those numbers all get their own words. But 16 through 19 is more of a compound. So 10 y 6, 10 y 7, 10 y 8, 10 y 9. You're going to see that's a pretty common theme coming up with more numbers. So let's continue. So now we have 21. 21 sort of sounds like it's 20 y uno, right? 21. Well, it is, but for compression of the words, so it's not too long. Also, so it's more, fits more with how the mouth says it. Because you don't go 21, you go 20, 21. So you sort of loop these two together. So then you just change that and make it a 9. Because that's how it goes. So after that, you'll end up with 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. After, 30 and so on will follow more of a formula pattern. So you have 31. So it won't change the A and the Y to an I because it'd be 31. And it's not. It's 31. Now you have 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Sometimes the difficult ones can be the difference between 60 and 70. But if you know your basics, you can ask them 60 as in 60 or 70 as in 70. Okay? So 100 doesn't follow the pattern. It's not going to be 101. It's going to be 101. And it's going to be 100 all the way down. So 128, 128. Okay? So just keep that in mind. After that, we have 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1000. So if you can see with the cientos, the hundreds, we have 200, 300, 400, 800, and 600. Like those are ones that we know is 600s, right? The ones that don't follow it is 500, 700, and 900. Why? I don't exactly know why, but they don't follow the pattern. So know that 700s, the 500s, and the 900s, it's not going to follow the compoundness. So it's not going to be 900, it's going to be 900. Okay? So some notes on cardinal numbers is that numbers will agree with the gender of the noun that they're describing. For example, with uno, it will change to un or una, depending on if the noun is masculine or feminine. So if you want to say you have one car, a car is a masculine noun, el carro. So it would change to un carro. Yo tengo un carro. I have one car. And then when it comes with feminine nouns, you'll change it to una, such as a house. House is feminine, so la casa will change to una casa. Yo tengo una casa. Now numbers ending with dos, you will change them to tas if it's feminine, such as with our examples of car and house. If you have 300 cars, you will say tengo 300 carros. But if you have 300 houses, you would use tas at the end. So tengo 300 casas. Now, when it comes to big numbers in Spanish, especially if you go to different parts of Latin America, I'm not sure about Spain. I don't mess with Spain. But in certain parts of Latin America, you can see that the way they separate numbers is, I don't want to say weird because it's not weird to them, it's weird to us who don't see it, but you will end up with periods being where we normally would see commas and commas where we would normally see periods. So this is what you will see, and this over there is what it means, okay? So when adding numbers past the decimal, it can sound pretty jumbled, such as with 38 y 45. There's a lot of e's in there, so 38 y 35. The big E is the one in between the two. So we know 38 is the number together, and then we have E to separate 45. However, you can also hear it being put as 38.45. So punto is dot or point. So that way you can hear the separation in there. Now when it comes to money, you will want to know how to ask how much something is. So you ask, ¿Cuánto cuesta? ¿Cuánto cuesta? How much is it? How much is it? Right? Or if you're that friend that likes to lend out money, or if someone's lending you money, you will hear, ¿Cuánto dinero necesitas? How much money do you need? I guess that's not technically lending, but giving, but you decide, right? So when you hear money, you want to think of with. There's an association. At least that's how I use it when it comes to money. So with 38.45, you would say 38.45 centavos. So cents is the units that I'm using. But if you want to be more particular, you could say $38.45. $38 with 45 cents. You can say that, but some people are just going to drop the dólares and just use centavos as the overall unit. When it comes to percentages, that one's pretty easy, in my opinion, because you would just have the cardinal number in the beginning and then out of 100. So 50% is 50 porcentaje. It doesn't really sound nice, and I haven't ever used it that way, nor have I used it that way. The way you say it is 50%, 50 out of 100. That's how you would say 50%. Just like 30% would be 30%, not 30 porcentaje. It doesn't work. That's why direct translations are not what you should live by. So when it comes to asking someone what is their phone number, right? You can ask what is their house phone number, what is their cell phone number, or simply just what is your number, right? So in Spanish, you would say, what is your number of telephone? What is your number of cellular? And then what is your number of home, right? So you would say, the most common way I hear it though is just what is your number? ¿Cuál es tu número? But if you want to specify, you can say ¿cuál es tu número de teléfono? Or ¿cuál es tu número de celular? ¿Cuál es tu número de casa? You can also use this when asking like what is your social security number? ¿Cuál es tu número de social? Or ¿cuál es tu número de seguro? What is your security number? Or ¿cuál es tu número de PIN? What is your PIN number? You can say it like just what is your number of whatever. ¿Cuál es tu número de casa? Again, ¿cuál es tu número de casa can be interpreted as what is your house number? Like what's the number on your house? Like the street number, I guess that's how you would do it. But it can also be what is your house phone number? Nowadays, no one would really have a landline, but some people still might. So you can also specify like, ¿cuál es tu número de calle? What is your street number? But sticking with phone number, we can go with mi número es, my number is, and then you would say the numbers. In Spanish, in Latin American places, they give the numbers 2 digits at a time. So you would start with, like for example, we have 52, 86, 26, 33, 19. So that's 2 digits, like grouped together, 2 digits at a time. Whereas in like United States, some other places, maybe United States seems to be on its own in this one, so maybe. But you give your number 3 digits at a time. So rather than changing all the numbers to cientos, whatever, we just give them each number individually, but with a pause after every 3 digits. So 528, 726, and then the last 4 are done grouped together. And some people do it, some people don't. I sometimes do it depending on the numbers if I like them grouped. But you get 33, 19. So that's how I give numbers because I'm in the States. So I do them 3 at a time, but if it's a really long series of numbers, I tend to do it 2 digits at a time. But your preference, however you want to give your numbers, as long as you're giving the right numbers, people don't care. So the way we look at different ways of giving phone numbers would be as such. You can see there's the grouping of 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. Whereas, like I said, here in the States, it goes 3, 3, and then 4. But we wouldn't say 3,319. That's just a mouthful, right? Like we wouldn't say 3,319. That's not how we're going to give that number. We break it up into 2 for the final ones. When it comes to asking someone how old they are, you're not going to use the verbs to be, which in Spanish there are 2. It's ser and estar. You're not going to use those. You're going to use the verb to have, effectively saying how many years do you have. But the way it is properly translated is how old are you? Okay, so to say how old are you, you're going to say ¿cuántos años tienes? ¿Cuántos años tienes? And the way you respond to that is by saying I have whatever many years, okay? But what you're saying is I am that many years, okay? So yo tengo 92 años. Yo tengo 92 años. I am 92 years old, okay? So of course you would want to say like, oh, but I'm not saying I have 92, I am 92. No, in Spanish, that's not how it works. Just keep that in mind. You're not saying you are 92 years old. I mean, unless you're a 92-year-old number, like the number itself, then you would use am. But you, as a person, you have 92 years old because next year you're going to have more or whatever, all that stuff. Your age is not your identity. It's something that you possess, okay? Think of it that way. Make a video on it later. Just think about it now. You use the verb to have when talking about age, okay? Now, when it comes to asking how many something are, you're going to use cuantos or cuantas, depending on if the noun's masculine or feminine, and then the item, and then I, meaning there is or there are. So the way you respond to cuantas camisas hay, you respond to I, the number, and then the unit. So we have, in our example, we have hay 1522 camisas. There are 1,522 shirts. If you have a store, that's a nice number. If you have that in your house, you might have a problem. When it comes to telling time, Spanish does it in a singular or plural way. So if it's 1 o'clock, you say, es la una. Es la 1:30. It's 1:30, right? So you want to keep the time singular when you're talking about 1 o'clock, and plural, like son las 9, it is 9 o'clock, when talking about anything that's plural. So remember, 1 o'clock is singular, anything after 1 o'clock is going to be plural. I'll make a video on time later too, so make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you get to notification to know when I leave videos. Yeah, all the good stuff. So I have homework for you guys. Your homework is to tell me how much did each of these cost. ¿Cuánto cuesta? So, una libra de uvas cuesta. That's how you start your sentence, okay? So tell me, how much does 1 pound of grapes cost, okay? Una papaya cuesta. How much does a papaya cost? Una libra de manzanas cuesta. A pound of apples cost. And un kilo de toronjas cuesta. And a kilo of grapefruit cost, okay? So let me know in the comments below how much each of these cost. Y con eso, and with that, gracias por acompañarme en este viaje de aprendizaje. Chao.